Hello and welcome to the Citigo Identity First Security Summit. This is your password list really passwordless? I am Tim Callan, Chief Compliance Officer at Citigo, and I'm sitting here with Jason Sirocco, CTO of PK at Citigo. How are you doing today, Jay?
Doing great, Tim. Thanks for having me.
So is your password list really passwordless? As a quick reminder to everybody, we do have the Speak With Us button in your interface, so go ahead and hit that and chat your comments or your questions. And we have an associate who's there who's going to be able to respond and answer your questions in real time as we talk. Is your password list really passwordless? So Jason, is your password list really passwordless? Oh,
I
here
think
we
another
are.
way of ask. I think another way of asking the question is your marketing buzz term really what you think it is?
Is your marketing buzz term really a marketing buzz term? So passwordless is indeed a hot topic. What a great way to lead us into that slide, Jay. And you pretty much can't swing your arm without running into somebody complaining or explaining that they have a passwordless solution or something that enables passwordless authentication. And what we want to do is we want to clarify what does this word passwordless really mean? What is passwordless? What is not passwordless? What are the benefits of true passwordless? And I'm going to say that we're going to make up a word. We're going to call it pseudo passwordless. What were you going to say, Jay?
No, I was just going to agree. Basically, to me, passwordless means let's get right down deep here. It means not a shared secret based authentication mechanism. And so that means any form of shared secret should not be considered passwordless at all. However, many shared secret forms of authentication are called passwordless. And we can talk a little more about what that really means in a bit.
Yeah. I think we should. Why do people care about passwordless at all? Well, because passwords suck.
Yeah, they're not secure. They have a terrible user experience, especially even with MFA, even if the MFA is pretty slick.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that the cost of, geez, I forgot my password over the years, Tim, I can't imagine the amount of money
Yeah.
that's been spent in supporting, oh, I forgot my password.
And the amount of lost productivity, even just the little tax of, oh, I don't know my password and I'm going to take 4 minutes if I'm lucky, 20 minutes if I'm not, to get it figured out and reset right now, toward the bigger thing like I don't have my password and I can't get in and therefore I can't see this file, right? And I can't give you the feedback that I need to give you, and the file goes out and it didn't have my feedback and it's wrong, right? That sort of thing has happened as well. So the user experience is terrible. The impact on the organization is terrible. I don't know anybody that doesn't hate them. Like it's just a lousy part of our day. And if all your employees are walking around having a worse day because of these damn passwords, that's a problem. And like you said, the security is really weak. Passwords get attacked in all kinds of ways that are unique to password. There's no equivalent. There's no non-shared secret equivalent of credential stuffing.
Tim, and I tell you what, you go down to the second bullet point here. MFA has a similar set of problems.
Yeah.
I agree that that's true. Is MFA on top of a password more secure? Yes.
Yeah.
You've definitely raised the bar to the bad guy. Keep in mind, not all MFA are created equal when it comes to security. There's very, very bad MFA, and there's some pretty good MFA.
Yeah, and be a little leery about the idea that thinking you've applied stronger security is a smokescreen to actually knowing whether or not your security is good enough. You say, oh, we got MFA, it's better. Well, it's better, but don't skip to the end of assuming that's all done, because maybe it's not really good enough. And maybe you need to do better than that.
Entering a one-time passcode into a laptop that's possibly been compromised, is that really good security? No. As well, don't forget that a lot of white hat research has been showing us that many forms of MFA can be bypassed. Yeah. So thinking that it's somehow an ironclad security on top of a weak password, I think that notion has to start going away.
Yeah, and then so passwords were awful to begin with. and then suddenly the whole thing just got put under a magnifying glass by COVID, right? Where suddenly everything changed and everybody got sent to home, and the degree and need for authentication just went up that much more, and all of these things just became that much more visible to us.
Tim, I've been a remote worker since 2006, and I can tell you, I've used every authentication mechanism that exists, and anything that's not a certificate based, kind of,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not fun. Having to pull out my phone all the time, it's just. I
yeah.
think now that
I hate that.
it's not just people like me and you. It's large chunks of the enterprise are now having to live that lifestyle. I think people now realize something has to be better. And by the way, there is something better.
By the way, there's something better. So, and that better is passwordless. So this is kind of the flip of the previous slide. We say, well, what happens if I go to a passwordless environment? What do I get? It is a better user experience, right? We talked about forgetting passwords, but let's talk about things like password reuse or weak passwords, right? I can't I've got different rules based on the different places I have to give a password, and some of them require that I have an uppercase and a lowercase, and some of them don't, and some of them require 3 of the 4 following things, and some of them don't, and some need to be at least 8 characters, and some of them want to be at least 12, and so I don't even know what the rules are consistently. I don't want to reuse the same thing, so what am I going to do? Am I going to reuse the same thing? It, or am I not going to reuse the same thing? And it's awful. It's horrible. And the employee efficiency is lacking, and it's all there. We didn't even talk about the support burden, right? Like it'd be interesting to quantify how much of your IT team's time is spent on password-based support tickets. And
I
think
bet you a
about what they
lot.
were doing if they didn't have to do those tickets, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Tim, it's unreal. And you know what? In the big green box, the better security, I'd
Yeah.
even add another bullet point in there of key logging, which is maybe one of the biggest
Key
ones.
logging. Key logging. Shame on me. I made these slides. I left that one out. Yes, key logging. Absolutely. Phishing, right? Phishing attacks passwords. Credential stuffing attacks passwords. Brute force attacks and dictionary attacks. Social engineering. And heck yeah, key logging. Of course, key logging. That's
It's
Jay.
incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah.
There's also man in the middle attacks on the
Yeah,
network.
yeah.
That green box, you'd have to expand it beyond the size of the slide you've got. The point we're trying to make here is that shared secrets have the major problem of security vulnerabilities, regardless of MFA.
Mm-hmm.
MFA basically just makes the job of the bad guy just a little bit harder, and as well the user experience. I'm so sick and tired of entering OTP codes, Tim. It's if I never have to do another one, I'll be so thrilled.
So the capsule summary: it's more secure, it's a much better user experience, your employees are more efficient, and you reduce your help desk burden. So this is the reason it's a hot topic, right? And this is all just by way of sort of setting the stage that yes, it's a hot topic and people want passwordless, and they should want passwordless, and good on them for wanting passwordless. Now we come to the problem of, well, what does that actually mean? What am I getting if I'm getting passwordless? So what is passwordless not? Passwordless is not a user experience. Let's start
Hey,
there.
yeah, Tim. So in other words, when you're talking to a vendor who's got the word passwordless sprawled across their website, basically keep in mind that the user experience can be different depending on whatever solution that they're offering you. Really, the security benefit is probably paramount to what it is that you're buying. The user experience will come with it. But keep in mind, and this is the big homework for you who are in the middle of some kind of procurement process looking at passwordless. What you're going to be acquiring, what you're procuring, is an architecture. It's not necessarily user experience. It's not even a security mechanism. It is an architecture that provides both, and they're going to be different per vendor solution. And they all do it a little differently, and that's something we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, and so the user experience is a byproduct, right? And it's an important byproduct, and it may be your primary motivator or one of your primary motivators, but let's not confuse the two. The architecture is the architecture. That's what's actually passwordless. The user experience is the consequence of that, right? All right. So then It's not a user experience. So then if it's not a user experience, what is it? What is it? It's an architecture that does not have a shared secret, right?
That's huge. And I'll tell you,
Yeah.
this is our definition.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be other vendors who will disagree with this.
Yeah.
And the other vendors will be selling you a shared secret based system. But because of some technicality of maybe you're not necessarily physically typing a password into your
Yeah.
keyboard, doesn't mean there's not a password underneath it or other forms of shared secrets. Therefore, I'd like to make the argument that if there's a password anywhere to be seen or any form of shared secret between the client and server anywhere to be seen in the architecture, it's not passwordless.
Right.
Essentially, what it becomes is as a form of password manager.
Yes, exactly. And there's a benefit there, right? It's a better user experience. And this is why we tried to clarify on the previous slide that passwordless is not a user experience, passwordless is an architecture. And this is important because there are other benefits. So if you go back a couple slides, we talked about, well, there's the user experience aspect of things, and then there's the security aspects of things. So if you want to go for one of these password manager type solutions, if you will, Jay, you can make the user experience considerably better, and your users will be happy, and maybe there'll be less forgotten passwords, and all of those are very positive things to do. But don't confuse yourself and think that you're getting the benefits of passwordless from a security perspective, because you still have that shared secret, you still have the vulnerabilities that come. You could still have a man-in-the-middle attack, right? The vulnerabilities that come with that shared secret.
So Tim, you and I tonight could go to a shared garage and start writing software, essentially just an agent that sits on the computer that will enter your password for you, so you don't have to. You're not physically typing that password. Is that a passwordless system that we'd be selling?
Right. Yes.
If we were,
we might claim that it is, right?
We might use the marketing buzz term, but it's not really passwordless.
But as we wrote here on the left, buried passwords are still passwords. They're just buried. Password wallets are still using passwords. It's right there in the name. Password abstraction layers are still using passwords. It's right there in the name. The shared secret's still there. Password's still there, and the vulnerabilities. Some of these vulnerabilities go away. Maybe password reuse or oversimplified passwords become less of a risk, but the other vulnerabilities don't. It's still a password-based solution.
When you're challenging your vendor in the procurement cycle, find out whether they are merely a password abstraction layer, which is the user is not entering a password, but underneath a password is still associated with the credential. Or find out, are they merely a password wallet or a password manager? Or are they just somehow burying the password and entering it into whatever system that's being authenticated to? Typically, what I'm seeing is a lot of passwordless vendors are usually one of those three.
Right, correct. Now let's also clarify that a PIN is not a password. So in a passwordless solution, I have a device, might be my mobile device, it might be my laptop, and I take it and I somehow authenticate that I'm the person who's really owning that device. I put in a code, or I draw a little picture, or I hold it up to my face, or something authenticates that it's me. And once that's done, then PKI, cryptography, authenticates my identity into the network or the system, right? So you might say that's a password, right? I just put in a 4-digit, that's just a password, but it's numbers, right? No, Jay, that is not a password, right? And tell me why.
A PIN, typically the best analogy I like to come up with, whether it's a biometric PIN or enter a 4-digit PIN or 6-digit PIN, a PIN typically acts like a username. And so, in other words, what you're doing is you're announcing to the system, hey, I'd like to use my asymmetric secret. And you are doing exactly what it says in this slide, which is mobile device, which contains an asymmetric secret inside of, say, a secure enclave. You want to be able to authenticate into a system. Well, because of the fact that the system might not necessarily know whose hands is this device in, there's a challenge. And that challenge is the same as saying, hey, who are you again?
Right.
Your username. And by entering in that PIN, you're essentially verifying that username. It's exactly what the biometric's doing, the same thing that 4-digit PIN is doing.
And what it does is it prevents somebody from stealing my phone and getting access to all of my stuff, right? But what it doesn't do, it's different than a password in an important way. It's ensuring that the device is in the hands of the person who should have it. It's not coming into the network in and of itself and asserting the authority to come in and get access to things, right? Access isn't being granted based on the PIN. And then the other big important thing about the PIN is that the PIN is not traveling across the open internet. There is no man in the middle attack to be done here. There is nothing to be spied on here. There is no spoofing attack that can't be social engineered. All that stuff doesn't exist by virtue of where the PIN sits in the ecosystem.
And even if a keylogger were used on, say, a mobile device, an Android device where a PIN's being entered, if the bad guy got a hold of the PIN but did not have physical access, physical possession of
can't do anything with it.
Can't do anything with it.
You don't have the private key.
Exactly.
So it doesn't matter, right? And by the way, a PIN, we traditionally think of a PIN as letters or numbers that you type in. But again, there's lots of analogies to this, right? I used to have a device where I drew a little picture on it, right? And stuff like that. And they're all kind of doing the same thing. They're just doing that different ways. So that's an important thing to understand, because a passwordless architecture will have a PIN involved. And it's easy, if you don't understand these subtleties, to say, well, isn't that just a password? The answer is no, it isn't. So true passwordless architecture must be PKI based.
Yeah, Tim, and to be very generic, that's why we use the term asymmetric. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a technical term. What it basically means is there's been a cryptographically generated secret that's been broken in half, a public half and a private half. That public half is just what it is. It's publicly available. It's in a directory. People can look it up. And typically modern computer systems now just do that automatically. The private part of it is what you store inside of your secure elements. And that's something that never leaves and never should leave your device. And so the beauty to this is that the entire authentication sequence is done in such a way that you're not giving away the secret. You can't be social engineered for the secret. In other words, hey, give me your certificate, give me your private key. You probably don't even know how to do that. So how could you do it? The other big advantage is, as Tim has said about man-in-the-middle attacks and keylogging, there's nothing to keylog. There's nothing in freely available memory to malware. There's nothing that's going to be sent over the network. The secret that needs to be kept secret is kept a secret.
Right.
Okay. This is the fundamental difference between shared secrets and asymmetric secrets. And asymmetric secrets are the basis of crypto keys, or in the case of certificates, right, that's a crypto key wrapped inside of a policy envelope. And that's what we call a certificate, and therefore can be managed for renewals and all these other things that we can give you for governance and visibility.
So asymmetric secret is kind of a general term, and a crypto key pair is the specific technical implementation of how that's done. Correct. There isn't really an alternative to crypto key pairs. It's you do crypto keys, or you don't really have asymmetric authentication. Like that's the reality of it.
Yeah, we're playing with a lot of semantics here, but since it's a webinar to learn, we use that term asymmetric to distinguish from shared secrets.
Yep.
Then we're distinguishing also between raw crypto keys and authentication and certificate-based authentication, which uses the same
next
crypto
point
keys.
I was going to get to, right? The keys themselves, the symmetric keys, are what make this possible. The certificate is a wrapper that sits around it that has certain policies. The certificate is essential. It gives you control over those keys. Otherwise, the keys are just keys. Certificates can expire. Certificates can be revoked. Certificates can have metadata attached to them. Certificates can be logged. Certificates can be monitored. There's all kinds of stuff that comes once you're using certificates that's essential to having a workable, robust identity platform or identity solution that's beyond strictly the cryptography and the keys.
But let's go back, Tim, to our original point, right? Security. This is maximum security if you're storing your private key correctly. Number two, Usability. Well, how about a tool that all you have to do is enter in your biometric or your PIN and you're in? What a fantastic usability feature that is
Right.
to utilize certificates.
Yep.
And in terms of support, these are your last 3 bullet points, which is the support is done through certificate lifecycle management and beautiful protocols such as Acme to be able to get the certificate where it needs to be. In other words, nobody's going to forget their crypto key, but people do need to be provisioned, and people
Yep.
do need to be also, hey, I lost my device, I need to have it, another device re-provisioned, or my certificate's only going to last,
Renewal.
a year of renewal.
Yeah.
That's all going to be done by certificate lifecycle management. It doesn't involve pain to your user, and also a lot less cost to your support systems.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is our definition of passwordless. Now, you may have a problem. You may have some legacy systems where true passwordless, as you and I defined it, crypto key based authentication just isn't possible. And oftentimes we see in a large enterprise and established enterprise that these will all be mixed together. I'll have legacy systems and new modern systems, and they'll all be operating in the same enterprise simultaneously next to each other.
You might have legacy applications that only have one form of authentication, that's using your password, and that's it. You might have mainframes and using your password, and that's all you've got. So for those of you who are dealing in those kinds of worlds, I've got sympathy for you, but keep in mind there's other things you can do. Now that you know, once you've taken inventory of systems that do support asymmetric secrets, passwordless, true passwordless, and those that do not, we tried to give you at the bottom of the slide a few ideas. So in other words, various forms of network isolation are now going to be important to you. And also some systems that might not support necessarily asymmetric secrets might support symmetric tokens with a form of single sign-on. And that's another way of getting around this so that your user experience is better. And depending on how you've created your system, it can be more secure overall and have less support issues. Sure. So therefore, you're going to have to be creative, but certainly now that you have your list, you've done your inventory, there is homework to go and do on those systems.
Yeah. And just tell us, what's the lowest common denominator fallacy? This last bullet says, don't fall for the lowest common denominator fallacy.
What I would say is this. When you're dealing with username and password, what you might find yourself doing, because it's very tempting, is to say to yourself, you know what, I've read 10 blogs, and what they all say is, if I just have 150 Mongolian characters in my password, that's good. No bad guy ever going to guess that. Well, it's not about guessing. Remember Tim and I talked earlier about keylogging? We talked about man-in-the-middle attacks. Your passwords are crossing your network, sometimes in the clear, unbelievably, but it's true.
Yep.
And therefore, the lowest common denominator of just using the username and password, don't believe any blog post you've read, regardless of the person's name or how much you trust them. That password, that shared secret, will get into the hands of the bad guy.
There you go. Yeah. And so even if you're stuck using them some places, you don't need to therefore come to the conclusion, well, I must use them every place, right? If those legacy systems are forcing passwords, the idea is let's try to minimize the risk that comes with that. All right. So anyway, that's it. That's true passwordless. That's our definition of true passwordless and what is true passwordless and what is not. If you did like this conversation, Jason and I run a podcast. It's called Root Causes, a PKI and security podcast. You can find it in popular podcasting places. We have hundreds of episodes. We're continually talking about topics like this one, like all the things we touched on today. And we'd love to have you join us as we deep dive into lots of aspects of this world.